Good morning, all. So, in the last class, we have discussed about various iron ore deposits which are present in the country. And today we will be discussing about metallurgical coal, which is used for the preparation of metallurgical coal. So, coal is basically formed when dead plant matter decays and it is converted into coal when it is subjected to high pressure and heat for long duration of time. Then this plant matter converted into a solid mass is called coal. So this formation of coal basically takes place by undergoing various transformations, starting with peat, and then this peat is transformed into lignite, and lignite to bituminous. Bituminous, again in between we have semi-bituminous, then anthracite, semi-anthracite, and then graphite. So as the time process, this transformation basically takes place under pressure and heat below the crust. Heat is the first stage product in the formation of coal from the wood, and it is converts into lignite. Is a second stage product in the formation of coal. So during this transformation from peat to lignite, lignite to bituminous, bituminous to anthracite, and anthracite to graphite, the carbonaceous matter present in the woody mass will be increasing. So the process of this conversion of lignite to anthracite is called as coalification of coal. And among all these, peat is the most immature coal. Means it is having a very less amount of carbonaceous matter. And anthracite is the most matured coal because by that time, good amount of carbonaceous matter is developed in that woody mass. So the rank of the coal denotes the degree of maturity. The more the carbonaceous matter we have, that means it's the most matured coal. So during its transformation from peat to anthracite, so carbon content is gradually getting increased. And this coal, whatever it is formed under the earth crust, undergoing high pressure and temperatures, it will be in very dense form and very brittle, and also because of these two natures, we cannot directly subject into the blast furnace as a feed material. That's why we convert coal into coke, where this dense form carbonaceous matter will convert into a porous form of carbonaceous material having high carbon content and having good strength. great porosity. So this is very important. This property is very important for the fuel which is you are using inside the blast furnace. It should be highly porous and should have a good amount of carbonaceous matter should be there. Then only the interaction between gas and the solid inside the blast furnace can take place effectively, and the combustion of coke can take place effectively inside the blast furnace. Not only that, the result, outcome of this combustion, that is the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide gases formed, those can also easily expelled from this coke. So there are different grades of coals are available. All coals are not subjected for the coke making process. Only few grades of coal which are having a peculiar behavior when you subject for the cooking process. Only such coals are used for coke making, and those are called as metallurgical coals. And the coke which is manufactured from the metallurgical coal are called as metallurgical coke. So certain coals, when heated out of contact with air, that will result in the carbonaceous, nearly volatile free, strong and porous mass, sufficient strength. That is called as basically coke. So a coke is nothing but which is having rich carbonaceous matter, nearly volatile free, strong and porous mass. So that is called as coke. So the coal which can be converted into coke is called as metallurgical coal, or we can also call it as coking coal. And these coals are usually subjected for the coke making process, and the coke which is formed from these metallurgical coals are called as metallurgical coke, and this metallurgical coke is used as a fuel inside the blast furnace for iron making process. So coke which is formed can be as good as coal from which it has been made. So if you use good cooking coals, then you expect a good metallurgical coke out of it. So when I'm saying a good metallurgical coal, means what kind of properties does this coal should have? A good metallurgical coal should have low ash content, and impurities such as sulfur and phosphorus should be in low quantity, and along with this it should have high FC, that is high fixed carbon. And if you subject this kind of coal for coke making process, then you will end up with a good quality coke having VM, that is volatile matter, less than 2%, ash content not more than 10%, And most important thing is fixed carbon having minimum of 85%. With impurities ranging having phosphorus ranging from 0.08 to maximum of 0.04% and sulfur 0.6 to 1.5%. And if the coke is having this kind of composition, then we can readily use this coke for the fuel inside the blast furnace. And such a high quality coke can only produce if you use good quality coals. You can see in this particular picture that coals which give coke of good physical properties are known as prime coking coals. And apart from that, we have medium coking coals and weak coking coals. And you can also see the distribution of these coking coals reserves in India. So it is clearly seen from this particular picture that we have maximum amount of non-coking coals. Around 87% coal deposits, whatever we have in India, those all are maximum 87% are non-coking coals, which cannot subject for the coke making process. And rest 12 to 13%, whatever is there, that is again categorized into semi-coking coals having 0.32%, medium coking coals having 9%, and prime coking coals, which is having a very high quality coals you can use for the coke making process. We are having only 2.86% deposits in our country. So keeping the availability of the coals into the consideration, the industries have come up with alternative routes of iron making process where you no need to use prime coking coals for the production of iron. So that is how the coal-based DRI process came into existence, utilizing the maximum availability of non-coking coals for the production of iron in the solid state, where the solid reduction of iron takes place in the rotary kilns. You can also see a table which shows the reserves which we have till the year 2020. Prime coking coals, we have 5,313 million tons. Medium coking coals, we have 27,984 million tons. And semi-coking coals, we have 1,708 million tons. And non-coking coals, you see, there's a huge quantity of non-coking coal deposits are there in our country. 3 lakhs million tons of non-coking coals are present. And we can also see the distribution of these coal deposits in our country and what are the various states which are contributing the production of coal. If you see, states which belongs to the central India, especially Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, these are the states which are having good amount of coal deposits. as per 2020 statistics, Jharkhand is having 85,602 million tons of coal deposits are there. Then followed by Odisha, 84,652. Followed by Chhattisgarh, we have 69,432 million tons of coal deposits are available. So that's why if you see most of the integrated or mini steel plants are located in these particular states where we have good amount of iron as well as coal deposits which are readily available for the production of iron. The prime coking coals are basically available in Jharia coal fields, then Bokaro, Ramghar, and Raniganj. This contains medium coking coal, and Jharia coal fields contain prime coking coal. And whatever the coals which we do mining, these coals will have certain amount of gangue content associated with it. So before we subject these coals for the coke making process, we need to undergo beneficiation process where we subject coals for washing. So integrated steel plants will be having coal washery units where we do washing of coals to minimize the gangue content as well as ash content associated with it. So as we have seen, the prime coking coal deposits are very, very less. We have hardly 3%. So to utilize these high quality coals for the manufacturing of the coke, we used to do blending of different grades of coals to make it proper combination of properties which are desired for the preparation of coke, and then the blended coal is subjected for the coke making process. So for that is to minimize the consumptions of prime coking coals which are available at very small quantity. For optimum utilization of prime coking coals, it is blended with medium and weak coking coals, approximately around 50%. And when you subject these blended coal for the coke making process, around 75% of the coal, whatever you have fed into the ovens for coke making process, that will be available as a coke. And rest of the things, rest of around 20-25%, whatever it is there, so that will be expelled out in the form of a volatile battery. Move on to the next raw material, that is fluxes. So we use limestone and dolomite as a fluxing agents in iron making process to take care of gangue content associated with the iron bearing material. So the purpose of adding fluxes is to lower down the softening temperature of the gangue content associated with the iron bearing material. Especially Indian iron ores are basically high alumina siliceous ores. So we are having high amount of Al2O3 ranging from 15 to 25%, and Si is available along with it. And these two are refractory oxides having melting points greater than the iron making temperatures. So to lower down its melting point, so we add these fluxes so that combine form compounds, and that will be having lower melting points, so that we can see these refractory oxides in the oxide form, in the liquidous form at iron making temperatures. So combination of flux and the GAN is called as slag. It is an oxide product formed because of the smelting process. So the basic fluxes we add in iron making process is of limestone and dolomite, which is CaCO3 and CaMgCO3 taken twice. So before we subject these fluxes for iron making process, we hardly do any beneficiation process, but we go for comminution process, that is size reduction, and then we can subject these fluxes into the iron making process. So we have, as far as the 2017-18 statistics concerned, we have 338.5 million tons of limestone deposits are available in the states like Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. And this limestone is used for the production of both iron and steel. For the use in blast furnace, the CaCO3 content in limestone should not be usually less than 90%. So a good flux that should have a good quantity of limestone, that is CaCO3, at least of 90%. And the combined GAN content, again associated with it, is also consisting of fluxes, also consist of an amount of Al2 and SiO2 will be there, but it should not exceed more than 6%. And MgO should be within 4%. Sulfur and phosphorus as low as possible. Dolomite is CaMgCO3 taken twice. It should contain CaCO3 of 54.35% and MgCO3 of 45.65%. And we have a good amount of dolomite deposits also available. It's of around 8,415 million tons. And these are available states like Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and all, mostly in these states. And we'll see what are the role of these raw materials as a burden inside the blast furnace. The first raw material, what we discussed, is all about the iron bearing material, that is iron ore. So we charge this iron ore, which is a source of Fe in the blast furnace in the form of lumps and agglomerates. Okay. Again, agglomerate means sinkers and pellets, which are used from the fines generated during the beneficiation of or comminution of iron ore. And the next raw material is the coke. So the role of coke inside the blast furnace is it acts as a fuel which provides heat energy which is required for the reduction process to take place. It also provides carbon and it generates the reducing gases, reduce iron oxide to molten iron. Not only that, it provides a physical support the descending bed of raw materials and provides passage to the flow of hot gases and liquid inside the blast furnace. So we have a central coke column inside the blast furnace where it is called a dead man zone, where your gases, reducing gases travel in the upward direction, and the liquids which are formed, either it is slag or hot metal, percolates to the bed of solids, and finally it gets collected in the hard part of the blast furnace. And the fluxes, so which are added in the blast furnace, like limestone and dolomite. So its function is to lower down the softening point of the gangue content associated with iron bearing material, and also it takes care of the slag which is formed inside the blast furnace. So viscosity property of the slag is very, very important as far as the blast furnace running condition is considered. Highly viscous slag can hamper the permeability of the solid bed inside the blast furnace. So to lower down this viscosity property, fluxes, whatever you have added, it will associate with the gangue content and it lowers down the viscosity of the slag, so that the slag can easily trickle down to the bed of solids, and the permeability will be remains good, so that the concurrent reactions can take place effectively inside the blast furnace. Then pulverized coal. Along with coke, we also use pulverized coal called as the PCI, that is pulverized coal injections. We basically do it from the clear part of the blast furnace to lower down the coke consumptions. And apart from that, air is also pumped into the blast furnace to have a continuous combustion to take place at the clear part of the blast furnace and for the generation of the reducing gases. So before we subject any raw material into the blast furnace, we undergo these raw materials for the beneficiation process called the burden preparation, whether it can be a size reduction, so-called comminution process, or any other techniques which we follow for the separation of the gangue that should be the mineral matter. So coking coals, also known as metallurgical coals, it is used to produce coke. So particular property, as I said, which really differentiate coking coals from other coals are these coking coals have an ability to undergo softening when heated and become plastic and resolidify into coherent mass. So any coals which are having this peculiar property, that is, it should undergo softening and then become plastic and it solidify and it forms a coherent mass. So if you have such kind of behavior, then those coals are called as coking coals, and those coals can easily subject for the coke making process. So under different bank of coals, we have bituminous class coals of high, medium, and low VM are having these properties. So mostly in the coke making process, we use bituminous coals in a maximum extent, and to a certain extent, anthracite coals are also being used, but majorly bituminous coals are used. So I'll stop it here. We will discuss in the next class about what are the various constituents which are present in the coal.